Hello guys, so we are now in El Salvador at Landing Conference and here with you Anna Tutova, the founder of Coins Telegram, and our guest Eric Balchunas, who is the Senior ETF Analyst at Bloomberg. Great to have you here, Eric.
Yeah, great to be with you. Thank you.
So you've been ETF analyst for many years, since 2000, so can you tell us about your background and when did you discover personally crypto, Bitcoin first?
Yeah, I started covering ETFs in like 2005, so 20 years literally. But I covered mutual funds before that, so I've been in this area for a long time. 2000, I think it was 13, the Winklevoss Bitcoin ETF filing. That's when I first kind of got familiar with crypto, and honestly, Bitcoin was trading at $99. I should have bought a ton. I wouldn't be here right now. No offense, if I bought a ton back then. But anyway, that's when I first heard of it. It seemed a little, funny and crazy at the time. It was like, oh, what is this thing? It was hard. Well, that's why it was trading so low. People were like, yeah, whatever. Now I've seen it grow up. I've seen all these filings come in over the years. SEC rejects them. More people file. It's been an 11-year back and forth with the SEC. When BlackRock filed in 2 years ago, a year and a half, that was major. That's where I really got my head around the space. I worked with James Safert on my team, who's more native to crypto, and we really got into it, and we started covering this like crazy. Because BlackRock's no joke. Once the BlackRock fund quit, Larry Fink normally gets what he wants, and ended up it went through. And then when they launched, of course, I have to cover launches, so it's been a big part of my world for about 2 years. But I heard of it 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
And do you currently invest into Bitcoin or the Ethereum ETF?
We aren't really allowed to buy stuff that we invest in. So my portfolio is really boring index funds in my 401k. I purposely don't want to hold anything that I'm covering, because I don't want to have it in my head that I own this too. So as an analyst, we have rules around that. So I only own I will say I have a boring stock and bond portfolio.
And as well, you're based in the US, so now we have pro-crypto President Trump, so how do you see the involvement of pro-crypto regulations in the US this year, and how will it influence as well the influx of the funds into Bitcoin Ethereum ETFs?
Well, the ETFs don't need much help. They are now $120 billion. Of that growth, 38 billion of it is from inflows. It's hard to do. Our estimate was 10 to 15 billion, so 37 is double what we thought. They're doing fine on their own. I think Trump money can only help sort of overall narrative. I think here's my thesis on the price. When BlackRock filed, Bitcoin was 25,000, and it was living in the stench of FTX. Everybody thought Bitcoin was over. It's like, okay, finally it's dead. When BlackRock comes along, BlackRock is totally legitimate. They slowly erase the stench. And so I think the move from 25 to 70 is very much ETF driven. 70 to 100 though is Trump driven. And so I think now there's many narratives, especially around politics. But those narratives, having the cryptos are strategic reserve, they're going to just get the attention of retail investors. And most of them, when they think about investing, are probably going to use the ETF. So to me, the ETF is just a benefactor of all of this political news that favors Bitcoin. The regulatory scene also will be interesting because the SEC share is going to be way more liberal or libertarian than Gensler. So we could see some crazy stuff approved. Like they're already planning a Litecoin ETF, which Bitcoin maxis laugh at.
Yeah, so is that the only ETF which was some kind of accepted now? It's a bit weird.
I know. XRP is probably going to come out in Solana, and then we're going to have, it's going to be silly season a little bit. Dogecoin probably come. I mean, we'll see. But Litecoin looks like, because it is kind of Bitcoinish, that one's coming out because it's really not that much different. XRP and Solana were once called securities by the SEC, but that was the old SEC, so will they rescind that? My general take is we went from no chance to there's a pretty good chance that many of these things get approved in the next year.
And what do you think about meme coins and Bitcoin filing for Dogecoin?
I mean, I don't, the older I get, the less judgmental I get. I mean, It's like, I don't know, Taylor Swift music. Like, I don't get it, but fine, if you like it, I'm happy for you. Not my cup of tea. So, but, or it's just, a couple songs that I can get into, but it's not for me. These meme coins, to me, I was saying, I was a big baseball card collector. And these are just pieces of, they're like NFTs, I guess, or meme coins, where you buy them, they have a value. Some of the cards are worth a lot. At the time, you thought, man, if this keeps going up, I could retire. Ended up, nobody cared after everybody grew up and moved on to something else. I just feel like meme coins are like baseball cards or Pokemon cards, where they're only worth if someone else will pay for them. They're for fun. And if you're young and you want to have fun trading, knock yourself out. Like just know that over time, I wouldn't count on that to get you a house, to save for retirement. Like, I would definitely consider the traditional finance markets, which is why I've asked people, has anybody ever been 60-40 pilled, where you convince a Bitcoin or a crypto person to invest in stocks and bonds? I'm trying to do it. It's been tough, because once you go Bitcoin, it's hard to even see the benefit of any of that stuff. But the good thing about some of these traditional investments is the money works for you. There's cash flows and coupons. But I'm okay with all of it. I just think that the meme coin ETFs, when they come out, they won't get a lot of assets. 80% of the money will be in Bitcoin spot ETFs. That's the big story. That's the headliner act. All this other stuff is like opening bands coming after. No big deal, a little bit of a sideshow.
But as well as the launch of Trump's meme coin, we saw just a lot of inflows of the assets and liquidity into Trump's, and just it's been in the top just within one day.
Yeah. It's just fun and games.
You didn't get this from me.
I don't know. I don't know if I see the utility of it, but I used to be, my goal as a kid was to get a Dwight Gooden rookie card. He's a big baseball player. And I was like, I finally got one, and I thought I had got gold. If you owned it for a while, great, but over time, I doubt it's going to maintain that high value. It's probably going to come down. Even when the Melania coin launched, the Trump lost some. So this is just, I would just be very careful, with the rug pulls and all that. I just would look at it, again, I would look at it as the way, look at it as fun. You like to go out, go to the bar, go to a club, play sports. It's just a recreational activity. I would not think that people think these meme coins are going to fund their retirement. I just wouldn't count on that.
And as well, when we see the approval of other altcoin ETFs, do you see that some of what's currently in the coin ETFs will transfer to those altcoins? Like Solana and XRP?
No, because the average person who owns a spot Bitcoin ETF is probably a pretty sober person who's like, okay, I just don't want to kick myself if it goes to $1 million. I'll put 1% in. I'm going to buy the iShares or Fidelity or, and they're not, I just don't see that person going crazy. Now, it's possible some people who own the Bitcoin may actually expand and add some other ones, but I don't see them selling the Bitcoin and buying Trump Bitcoin. I think that they were pitched Bitcoin as digital gold and a currency debasement hedge. Those are serious things. And they're going to consider this a serious investment. Now, maybe in their hot sauce account, they're going to have a little fun and trade some Dogecoin ETF for a minute. That's fine. But I think, I'm somebody who is normie, learning about crypto, and I've come to the position that Bitcoin is special. It's truly decentralized. Nobody runs it. It's built on a really great military hardware, military cryptology to technology. So it's got a decent foundation. It's scarce. It just checks all the right boxes. And there's a lot of serious people involved. Once you go to these other crypto, it gets a little crazier and a little more so I think most people will arrive at the same spot on, which is, some of these other coins, maybe they're built for speed, and maybe one of them will have success as a sort of Web3 something, And the meme coins, totally speculation. But I think most people will end up with Bitcoin's like the most legitimate, special store of value coin of all of them. It's sort of the OG. So in a way, there's the S&P 500 ETF. That's why everybody thinks about that as legit. But then there's like weird ways to reorganize stocks. Like there's like thematic ETFs. Like somebody launched a fishing ETF. It invested in stocks that like are in global fishing. I mean, that's what a meme coin is. It's like it's a niche, fringe part of what most people think is like fun. But most people can buy the S&P 500, and that's their main thing. Bitcoin is the S&P 500 of the crypto. How about that?
And how do you see the current state of the crypto market?
It's having a nice bull run. So when you have a bull market, you get a little crazy, but it seems pretty good. I've been to a bunch of conferences over the past two years. They're smart people, they're fun, they're younger, and they seem to be really into it. That has all the makings of a growing industry. Reminds me of ETF industry when I first got into it. So it's great. I think it has a bright future. At the same time, though, I'm a person who will never go 100%. You know, I love my 60-40. That's why I tell that everybody gets all freaked out when the Bitcoin goes down 10%. I'm like, dude, you're up like 100% the past year. I'm happy with 8% a year at 60-40. 8. And they're like, oh, it's only 120%. It was 130 yesterday. So I think some of the expectations get a little crazy. So there are some crazy people.
And how long will this bull market last, in your opinion?
Oh God, I don't know. I find Bitcoin to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So right now, honestly, it feels like we've taken 2 steps big forward. But there will be a pullback. To me, the biggest risk to Bitcoin is the stock market crashing. The thing, if the stock market crashes, Bitcoin seems to be trading as a high beta stock. Bitcoin naturally will sell off. Like this Monday, stocks had a bad day, and Bitcoin was down 5%. Stocks were down 2 or 3%. So if stocks go down 20%, Bitcoin could go down 40%. But as long as the stock market, I think, is like stable enough, not moving too badly, Bitcoin should be able to continue to make gains. I think that's just my best analysis of it, but. In my job, we don't give like price predictions, but generally that's my take on how Bitcoin moves. It seems to move, it's either up more than the stock market or down more than the market. So, and every time there's a sell-off, it seems to ring true or seems to happen. So that's what I think the future will look like. So I think ironically, if you're into Bitcoin, you kind of, I think, have to root for the TradFi markets to like at least not be horrible.
Yeah, but as well, I think after the adoption of Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, the market changed completely. So it's a bit less volatile, but we now see like up and downs. I can't expect like the total crash like it was with FTX or previous cycles.
Yeah.
There was a big bear market.
The good news with all these TradFi players in, you know, it helps offset a FTX possibility. So while it's just different now, it's just that mainstream adoption may even remove some volatility. But I also think, I've always said, if ETFs came out when the Winklevoss ETFs filed, back full circle, FTX I don't think would have ever happened. Because he wouldn't have got that much money. Because the ETFs would have taken so much of the marketplace, FTX couldn't have grown as big. So in a way, ETFs are SBF proof. Nobody can just run off with the money and not have it. It's stored with the custodian, so every dollar in the ETF is literally sitting in Coinbase and Bitcoin.
Yeah, and as well, how do you see the change of institutional interest into crypto?
Growing.
ETFs?
Yeah, it's already started to grow. There's 1,400 institutional filers already reported in 3 periods, less than a year in the ETF. That's amazing. I think institutions, they move like aircraft carriers, slow. You know when an aircraft carrier turns, it's just, you can already see it. Oh, it's so big. So as they move, it'll be slow, but they move big. So I think they'll look for the next couple of years. I think you'll see more institutional adoption. They move in herds too. So if you're a pension and you see the Michigan pension bought it, then the Wisconsin pension bought it, and you're in Minnesota, you're like, oh, I better buy it too. There comes a point where it's almost like FOMO-ish in a way. Like, oh, well, if my peers have it, I should have it too. We'll probably get to a point like that, we'll see. But that's how their mindsets are. But the early adopters have started using it already. But the rest of them, it takes a little while. Same thing happened with ETFs. Institutions adopted it slowly, but ultimately they got more into it over the years as they saw their colleagues use it.
And as well, there are talks in the US about adoption of Bitcoin as a reserve currency. So do you believe that it may happen?
It seems like a pretty good chance. Now the amount of money they're going to buy is good, but it's tiny compared to what the ETFs are doing. So in a way, it's symbolically huge, though. If the news flow on that would be amazing. The government bought Bitcoin, and if a corporation like Microsoft buys a little, this is going to be a huge public relations, if anything. But the amount isn't huge. I think they said, 200,000 Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, ETFs do that every quarter, right? So even less, 3 months. So the Bitcoin ETFs are dollar and cents taking in way more. So that is bigger, but symbolically it's huge.
And what are your expectations for this year?
I hope to lose 10 pounds. I want the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. Oh, you mean Bitcoin-wise? I don't know. I don't know. I would say I expect nothing. You're already up 200-something% in like a year and a half. I would be like, even if we do 0% this year, we're still up a lot over 3 years. So I like to lower the bar, and then you clear it. You know, you ever heard the phrase, the road to hell is paved with high expectations?
Yeah.
I would just be careful. I've seen some of these people on Twitter, I can tell they're like really tormented over one day sell-off or something when they're up like that much. And I would make sure to diversify what you're into so that your whole mood isn't determined by this. There's some people who trade stocks that I would say a similar thing. So I just think I don't expect a lot from this year. Last year was 20% in the stock markets. That never happens. You're only supposed to get 8%. What was it? 100% in Bitcoin, you're only supposed to get 50. That was the annual average. So everything's a little stretched. So I would expect a little bit of reality to set in this year.
And as well, do you have any price predictions for Bitcoin?
We don't do price predictions, but it's one of those assets where if it's $100,000, if I see it here next year at this time and it's $100,000 still, I would be like, yeah, I can see that. But if you come back and it's like 250, I'd be like, yeah, that kind of made sense. All this other stuff happened. So who knows? I mean, it seems to take these real incremental big steps up sometimes. It went from 70 to 100 real quick, but it was around 70 to 50 for like months. So do we get another big, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't do price predictions, but I could see it. I don't know if I see it selling off like where it's worth 50,000. I don't know if that's in the cards, maybe. I would say 50-50 chance it's 100 or it's way higher. That would be my guess, but I don't know.
Oh, I hope it will be higher.
Yeah, I'm sure. So it usually goes up. So, but no one knows the future. That's one thing I know. I'm a fan of I don't know. So you just don't. When you do interviews, you can't really say I don't know, but I don't know.
Okay, let's see.
So,
Thank you for sharing
you got it.
your
Thank
thoughts with us.
All right.